Hello and welcome to another PlanetDestiny comparison video. Today we'll be taking an in-depth look at Fatebringer and Word of Crota, the two raid hand cannons. First up, let's take an overall look at each weapon. We'll start off with Fatebringer. Statistically, Fatebringer is actually not much of a standout. It possesses middling stats in many ways, with its above-average impact perhaps being the only positive outlier. Its base range is higher than Word of Crota and only a few points shy of Timur's Lash. The main selling point of Fatebringer's base stats is its huge base magazine size of 12. Even without Field Scout, this is the second highest available value for a hand cannon magazine size, and it's crucial to keeping DPS up at all times in both PvE and PvP. However, Fatebringer is not a monster because of its stat profile. This beast thrives on the benefits of its perks. Steady Hand, Sure Shot, and Quick Draw are admirable choices for first row iron sights. Steady Hand might ultimately be the preferable one, as the bonus to stability cannot be increased through any other means. Since Fatebringer has outlawed to quicken its reload speed, the other sights just fall flat a little bit. Firefly already rockets his gun into the front of the hand cannon pack. No other hand cannon in the game has Firefly as an available perk, as Firefly's damage and efficiency is directly proportional to base impact and weapon damage. It's undeniably the strongest on Fatebringer, even over Gellion's Demise and other high-impact scout rifles. To make things even more ridiculous, this weapon can cause chained arc explosions that can clear the field of all trash mobs adjacent to the primary target. The power of this in PvE truly cannot be oversold. It also has a couple of noteworthy third row perks. The first is Field Scout, which tops off the magazine capacity at 13 and provides a large amount of reserve ammo. We recommend selecting Field Scout unless you have a pressing desire for explosive rounds or the ability to move marginally faster when aimed down sights from single point sling. Explosive rounds can be disruptive and fun, but interfere with Firefly and Outlaw, making the combination kind of unreliable. Its third perk, Outlaw, is often considered a must-have for hand cannons. Most heavy-hitting hand cannons suffer from a low magazine size and or intolerable reload speeds, but Fatebringer has all the tools it needs to remedy these class-specific shortcomings. The speed at which you reload with Outlaw is only 1.77 seconds, and will proc in concert with Firefly. You never have to worry about one taking precedence over the other. Finally, its arc damage cements its place in the upper echelons of Destiny's weapons. Arc shields are perhaps second only to Solar in prevalence, and more difficult to handle. Fatebringer is perfectly suited for this role, so Nightfalls beware. Getting into the bad section, Fatebringer is not especially held back by any one negative. Its average stats perhaps make it a bit tricky to handle for those who aren't accustomed to hand cannons, but this is easily overcome with continued use. Squarely in these average stats is its stability, which is just enough to handle its average rate of fire. Fatebringer's reload speed isn't particularly fast, clocking in at 3.05 seconds, but it's enough to make reloading palatable without the obvious boon of Outlaw. Firefly is better suited for PvE and loses some of its usefulness in PvP, but that's discussed greater in detail in a PvP section later on. Single point sling in the third row is a bit of a disappointment. Fatebringer might prefer some help to range with Hammerforge or Send It, as both Hawkmoon, Thorn, Word of Crota, and even Timur's Lash are able to potentially buff their ranges in some way, but Fatebringer is clocked into that medium range sweet spot. Now it's time to turn scrutiny over to Word of Crota. Word of Crota is honestly a breath of fresh air when it comes to playstyle. With its best-in-class rate of fire, you'll be putting out rounds almost as fast as you can pull the trigger. This actually does good things for Word of Crota's DPS, especially in compensating for its lower impact. You'll be able to unload a full magazine in 4.5 seconds. Statistically, Word of Crota holds its own in most categories. Only the Red Hand 9 has a higher base stability among legendary variants. Word of Crota's 2.8 second reload speed is again well above average, only slightly slower than the Devil You Don't and the Last Word. Much like Fatebringer, the Word of Crota has some respectable iron sights. Steady Hand, Sure Shot, and Fast Draw can be shuffled according to how much stability and reload speed you desire. Again though, we're going to recommend Steady Hand, which strikes a nice balance between stability and aim assistance. As for distinctive perks, Zen Moment is actually quite practical with the fast rate of fire, as it's very easy to reach the maximum bonus afforded by the stacking perk, and keeping it up is simply a matter of continuing to pull the trigger. All 3 third row perks are also crucial for making this versatile weapon work. Speed Reload helps Word of Crota near the maximum base reload speed available for hand cannons, which helps compensate for the lack of Outlaw or Feeding Frenzy. Hammerforged adds a much needed buff to range, making it a variable threat in PvP. Finally, explosive rounds add some AoE damage, potentially along with the ability to reliably stagger foes and spread out its void damage evenly. You should switch between these 3 as often as you need to, as PvE content often demands a flexibility that Word of Crota can and should accommodate. A perk that really helps Word of Crota carve out a niche is Hive Disruptor. This raid standard adds a significant amount of bonus damage on top of Word of Crota's base damage when the weapon is used against Yellow Bar Hive Majors. Finally, its void damage is helpful but underutilized. Void shields are honestly the most rare, used only by Minotaurs and Scions, enemies who are especially lacking in most content. Still, as Atheon's Epilogue is resigned to 300 attack and continuing nerfs, it's nice to have another primary to carry over the Void Torch. Now getting into the bad section, on paper this weapon should be good, so what really gives? Savvy listeners may have already noticed that I've yet to mention its signature perk, Phantom Gift. As it stands, it's a broken and incomplete perk. It can work just fine in a lot of content, providing you avoid a certain number of conditions. You can't equip explosive rounds, as any damage dealt outside of the initial headshot will immediately reset the counter. You can't be firing on Hive Majors, as the bonus damage is treated as a separate shot and thus resets the counter. You can't use any damaging ability between shots, as the game considers grenades or supers as disruptive to the consecutive requirement. Technically, if the killing blow from explosive rounds is dealt with the base round absent of the explosive damage, you can chain 3 of these together to proc Phantom Gift, but that's going to be unreliable at best. Much like the White Nail perk, Bungie has offered no solution to this perk, and we have no guarantee that one will arrive anytime soon. It's a real knock to Word of Crota's efficiency, and moreover makes the weapon feel incomplete and not nearly as legendary as it should. If Bungie ever fixes it, then Word of Crota could potentially award a sharpshooter 5 additional rounds per clip, which would help a bit in compensating for low reserve ammo and keeping you in the fight longer. This weapon has one glaring weakness: impact. At 68, it's the lowest available base impact on a hand cannon, and nothing can be done to address it. And Destiny attempts to balance this statistic by creating an inverse relationship between impact and rate of fire, but it's not always a simple trade-off. Now, how do these actually compare? For those lucky few who have both, these next sections will help you decide which to select Fatebringer and when to go with Word of Crota. You may have strategies and situations which you prefer one over the other, so be sure to let us know that in the comments. Now for PvE, let's preface this. In pretty much every case, if you need a void damage weapon for a void burn, use Word of Crota. If you need an arc burn weapon, Fatebringer should be your choice. Now, in almost all content, Fatebringer is going to be straight up better. The staggering explosive power of Firefly and its arc chains, taking advantage of Fatebringer's high impact, is simply too good to pass up. If you can even land half of your shots on an opponent's critical spot, you're likely to clear out tier 1 level mobs with an unrivaled efficiency. Word of Crota holds its own just fine here, but even flawless accuracy and explosive rounds can't provide the same kind of AoE domination that Fatebringer brings. For patrols, strikes, heroics, and arc nightfalls, the average Destiny player is going to prefer Fatebringer. It must also be said that lower stress content such as rock strikes and daily heroics are a perfect time to play around with weapons you haven't used a lot. If you like to experiment, you can afford to give up the outright damage that Fatebringer guarantees to toy around with the fun replacements like Word of Crota when the pressure is off. However, there are some situations which the Word of Crota is still going to be an appealing alternative. First is the obviously higher level Hive missions. Any content which you expect to see plentiful amount of Hive Majors naturally lends itself to the Word of Crota's specific wheelhouse. Fatebringer will be unable to proc Firefly until landing the killing blow, and Hive Disruptor on a 331 Word of Crota is going to be objectively quicker in knocking these enemies down a peg. With explosive rounds, you can do 3 separate ticks of damage: the initial round, explosive round, and the Hive Disruptor damage, each with their own stagger rate. It's very easy to lock down and eliminate Hive Majors with the Word of Crota. Both the Awakening and Siege of the Warmind are friendly to the Word of Crota's particular set of skills. Finally, the Word of Crota can work better against bosses, even though we don't really recommend using a primary hand cannon as a boss weapon. However, if you're forced into it by ammo constraints, Phantom Gift and Zen Moment make a case for Word of Crota to be a better option. You can conceivably land 17 shots in a row if they're precision. Now in PvP here, the scales tip in favor of Word of Crota, as neither hand cannon hits any crucial benchmarks for 2-shot kills. The Word of Crota's fast fire rate makes it a little bit more deadly for those with patience and sharp aim. Crucible is all about time to kill, and the Word of Crota's time to kill is a hair faster than Fatebringer when considering consecutive critical hits and body shots alike. Fatebringer's signature Firefly perk is all but wasted in PvP, as opportunities in which it's possible to kill an opposing Guardian with a headshot and land some residual Firefly damage are just few and far in between. Outlaw is also debatably effective. Typically, winning a firefight will afford you plenty of time to reload and ready yourself for the next. Similarly, Zen Moment is not going to see a lot of uptime. Ideally, you'll be pulling off 3 to 5 quick shots and then moving to your next target. While consecutive hits will momentarily help you land your next shot, Zen Moment is more PvE focused. Phantom Gift of course is equally worthless. Getting an extra round from a 3-crit kill is a moot point when ammo is plentiful. Word of Crota does have speed reload and Hammerforge going for it though. Hammerforge is especially appealing for catching unwary Guardians by surprise and dropping them fast without losing accuracy at range, and speed reload adds an all-around buff to reload speed and is arguably better than Outlaw's precision-only conditional buff. Neither of these hand cannons are particularly suited to PvP. You'd be better off with an exotic or well-rolled Timur's Lash. If you have a desire to take one of them into the fires of the Crucible, you'd be better off with Word of Crota. Assuming that sights or range are not a problem for you, the fast fire rate will give you an edge over other hand cannon users. Just be sure to land those crits. So in summary, for PvE, Fatebringer is the real winner provided you don't need to take elemental burns into account. Word of Crota will only begin to win once you start doing encounters with enemies above level 33. In PvP, Word of Crota is going to be the winner due to its higher rate of fire and better stability and range. Truthfully though, neither weapons are well suited for PvP due to their perk sets and customization options being limited there. I hope you enjoyed this video comparison. This has been Patrick Casey with PlanetDestiny, your guide to the Destiny universe.